Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going beyond those superficial ideas of net worth and really diving deep into something much deeper. We're going to be talking about intrinsic worth.
It's a concept, honestly, that's often overshadowed by, that external validation, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And to really help us unpack this, we're going to be turning to a source that, it approaches this complex topic in a very interesting way. We're going to be looking at excerpts from the text, recognizing your true worth. And it actually does this through a parable, believe it or not. A story about a man, a stone, and a very surprising journey, I think you'd agree, to understand value.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating here is the parable uses these simple elements. It's just a man and a stone, but it highlights something we all grapple with as people. It's really about understanding our place in the world, right? Understanding our worth in a world that often can feel obsessed with, external markers of success.
Right. Okay, so let's unpack this parable. So we had this man, and he approaches Buddha seeking some guidance, right? He wants to understand, what is the worth of human life? And Buddha, in his infinite wisdom, hands him, a stone. And not like a dazzling gem or anything, just like an ordinary stone.
And the ordinariness of it, I think, is really key here, right? Because it sets the stage for a very, very powerful lesson in perception.
It does. Buddha then instructs the man to, and this is the interesting part, to gauge the stone's worth. But he has to do this by presenting it to various vendors in a marketplace. And here's the catch, he's not allowed to actually sell it. He's just supposed to go around and gather perspectives on what people think it's worth.
So it becomes less about the actual transaction and more about just trying to understand, how is value assigned in the first place, right? How do different people with their own experiences, their own priorities, how do they perceive the same object? It's fascinating.
Exactly. So our protagonist, he first stops at a fruit cellar, surrounded by piles of juicy oranges.
Yeah.
And he presents the stone. And the fruit seller, after, giving it a quick glance, offers a dozen oranges in exchange.
A very practical offer, right? I mean, it's grounded in the immediate needs of that vendor. He's thinking, okay, what can I get for this? What do I need? But does it really reflect the true essence of, a stone that's been touched by Buddha? That's what this parable, I think, wants us to really consider.
It really does get you thinking. So the man, kind of sensing that, maybe there's more to uncover here, he politely declines and moves on. And he ends up at a vegetable vendor, this time amidst, baskets overflowing with potatoes and other, earthy delights.
I think I'm already seeing a pattern here, right? Both of these vendors, they're valuing the stone based on their very immediate context. It's all about, their daily transactions, the things that they encounter every single day. And they're not really equipped, it seems, to see beyond that.
Yeah, it's like a classic case of just limited perspective, wouldn't you say? But hang on, because things are about to get a lot more interesting. So our friend with the stone, he now enters a goldsmith's shop, a place where, it's all about craftsmanship, the allure of precious metals.
Now, this is where I feel we might see a little bit of a shift in perception. Because a goldsmith, someone who is used to discerning value, right? They see value in the intricate details of things, the way light plays off a surface. They might pick up on something that the previous vendors didn't even consider.
And you would be absolutely right. The goldsmith, he's immediately struck by the stone's unique qualities. Maybe it's the way it catches the light. Maybe there's some unseen brilliance there. He sees something special, something beyond the mundane.
And just like that, the stone's value is elevated. And it's not because the stone itself has changed, right? It's because it's being viewed through an entirely different lens now, a lens of expertise and an appreciation for, the finer things in life.
And get this, the goldsmith, clearly captivated by this stone, offers a small fortune in gold coins in exchange for it.
Wow. That's quite a jump, wouldn't you say, from a dozen oranges or, a sack of potatoes. But it really highlights just how profoundly our perception shapes our judgment of worth, even when we're talking about something as, on the surface, objective as a simple stone.
Yeah, and it makes you think about how easily we can be swayed, right? Especially by those who we perceive as having some authority, some expertise. Oh, well, they must know what they're talking about.
Precisely. But I'm guessing the story doesn't end there, does it? Our friend, he remembers Buddha's instructions.
He does. He remembers. He's not supposed to actually sell it.
And he declines the offer. And I bet the goldsmith is astonished.
Oh, I bet. But then the plot thickens even further because he reaches the stall of the diamond merchant. Now we're talking about someone who deals with, the epitome of precious stones, right? The peak of perceived value.
Now, this is where things, I think, get really, really interesting. We're moving beyond just the monetary value now, right? We're getting into the realm of the truly rare, the truly coveted. So, what happens next? Well, the diamond merchant, he sees the stone and he's practically speechless, like he's taken aback. He like carefully examines it under his magnifying glass, turning it over and over, almost like it's some, sacred object or sight.
He's in awe of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's something really, really special.
Yeah, and he's seeing like the imperfections in it, right? The variations in clarity, the little things that to the untrained eye would make it seem less valuable.
Right.
But instead of like dismissing it, he takes this rich velvet cloth and he places the stone on it, like as if he's presenting, some priceless artifact.
It's like he's elevating it somehow.
And he's elevating it somehow. Exactly. And I think, what he's doing there, he's recognizing that even in those imperfections, there's a certain beauty, there's uniqueness there. And it's a uniqueness that I think goes beyond like our conventional ideas about what makes something valuable or not. And it's such a good metaphor, don't you think, for how we view ourselves, how we view other people. Like, what if instead of focusing on flaws, we took that approach,
Yeah.
We looked for the inherent beauty, the unique things that make each of us who we are.
It's a beautiful way to look at it.
Yeah.
But getting back to the parable, I mean, the diamond merchant ultimately declares this stone, this ordinary stone, beyond measure. Like he's saying it has no earthly value, it's priceless.
He's seeing the intrinsic worth. It's that value that just can't be, quantified, right? It's not about market trends, it's not about what other people think, it's something deeper than that.
Yeah. So at this point, our friend, he's gotten all these different valuations. He's gone from a dozen oranges to priceless. It's pretty amazing. And he goes back to Buddha. And I can only imagine, what's going through his mind.
Yeah, he's got to be confused, right? Like, what is going on?
Totally. What did you think of the stone? I'd love to hear those stories, right?
Yeah.
But it really sets the stage for what I'm assuming is like a really profound lesson from Buddha.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
So Buddha, kind of with his knowing smile, explains that the stone, much like us, much like human life, it's going to be valued differently by absolutely everyone. And that's because we all have our own, limited perspectives, our own experiences. The fruit seller, he saw a trade, right? Something practical. The goldsmith, he saw a rare treasure. And then the diamond merchant, he saw something beyond even worldly possessions.
And none of them were wrong, were they? It's just they were each viewing that stone through the lens of their own expertise, their own priorities. And I think that's such a powerful analogy for how we so often allow those external opinions to really define our worth as individuals.
Yeah. And it's so easy to fall into that trap.
Totally.
I mean, we let someone's like offhand comment, a bad review, even like just this perceived lack of recognition. We let those things make us question our value. Like, who are we?
Absolutely. It's so easy to internalize that stuff, those feelings of inadequacy, and they can really chip away at your self-esteem. But this parable, I think, the story of the man and the stone, it's reminding us that we have a choice. We don't have to listen to those voices.
Oh, I like that. So we have a choice. We have a choice to define our own worth. But how do we actually DO that? I mean, it's easy to say, but that's a lot harder to actually put into practice, don't you think?
It definitely takes effort. It's not easy. It requires us to kind of challenge those negative perceptions we have about ourselves, those voices in our heads, and cultivate, a more compassionate, more accepting view of who we are.
So it's more like a journey. It's not like you just get there.
It's not a destination. It's a journey. It's ongoing.
It's a process.
Exactly. But the good news is this parable, it doesn't just leave us hanging, right?
Right.
It gives us a really, really powerful real-world example to illustrate this very point.
Oh, and I have a feeling you're going to bring up someone who faced a lot of rejection.
Yeah.
A lot of people saying, no, you're not good enough.
You know me too well. Imagine this. You've poured your heart and soul into something, right? It could be a story, a piece of art, a business idea, whatever it is, you really believe in this thing. And then you put it out there in the world and people tell you it's worthless.
Wow.
And it's not just one person, it's multiple people saying, this is no good. This is not worth our time.
It's gotta hurt.
Yeah, you gotta have thick skin to keep going after that.
So who am I talking about?
I don't know. Who are we talking about here?
I'm talking about J.K. Rowling.
What?
The creative genius, the mastermind behind the entire Harry Potter series.
J.K. Rowling. No way. She faced that kind of rejection.
She did. Yeah, it's hard to believe, right? Before Harry, Ron, and Hermione were, like household names, those manuscripts, they were getting passed over by publisher after publisher. They literally thought the story, the magic that we all know and love, was worthless.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Could you imagine like how much strength that would have taken to keep going after all that rejection?
It really speaks to, the power of believing in yourself, especially when it feels like everyone else is saying, nope, this isn't it. But Rowling, she was onto something. She understood that, those rejections, they weren't a reflection of her worth as a writer. Not really. It was those publishers. They had their own limited perspective, just like in the parable.
Like they were looking at the stone and just like not seeing what was really there.
Yeah. Exactly. And the thing is, this isn't just about becoming a famous author or even about achieving some, huge level of success. This parable, this example with J.K. Rowling, it all comes back to, I think, recognizing that all of us, we have something to offer that's unique. Like we all have this blend of talents, perspectives, and experiences, and that's valuable in itself.
So how do we tap into that then? How do we go from, feeling kind of, I don't know, less than, to actually owning that intrinsic worth? I mean, that's what we really want to get at.
I think it starts with, honestly, just being more aware. Noticing when we let those external opinions, like those rejections, dictate how we feel about ourselves. Like, how often are we looking for someone else to tell us we're good enough, or comparing ourselves to some, impossible standard? We've all been there, right?
Oh, yeah. It's tough to break free from, that's for sure. But you're saying it's about, shifting our focus. Instead of looking outward for that validation, we need to look inside ourselves, right? Like, recognize those strengths, the things we've accomplished, and just, honor our own unique path.
Exactly. And it's about celebrating those things, not in a look at me, I'm so great kind of way, but in a way that helps us stand firm in who we are. Like, this is me, this is what I bring to the table, regardless of whether anyone else notices or not.
That's powerful. So it's like you're saying, our worth, it shouldn't be based on whether other people get us or not.
Yeah.
It's something we have to build from within.
Yes. And it's like, remember the diamond merchant? He saw the beauty in that stone when no one else did, right? We all have that same capacity within ourselves to see our own value, embrace those imperfections, and then share those gifts with the world.
So it's about remembering we are not defined by what others think, but by the value we place on ourselves.
Exactly. We are all, each and every one of us, like that stone touched by Buddha,
Right.
We possess this inherent value that goes beyond any external measure. It's priceless.
I love that. So the next time you're feeling undervalued, remember the man, the stone, and remember J.K. Rowling. Your worth, it's not about how many oranges or potatoes someone's willing to trade. It's about recognizing the inherent pricelessness of you.
Yes. Believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Keep creating. Keep sharing your gifts. Keep shining your light, because honestly, the world needs what you have to offer.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into intrinsic worth. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep discovering that priceless value within yourselves.